What is up, guys? You're tuning into this Okiru podcast. I'm your co-host, Jasper, and we thank you so much for spending this time with us. We hope you enjoy this episode. Make sure to follow us on our socials at okiru.apparel on Instagram, Okiru on Facebook, Okiru on YouTube, and also Okiru on major platforms such as Spotify and Apple Music. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We hope you enjoy. Okiru. What is up, guys? We are joined by our good friend JP and Liem Nguyen. What is going on?
What's up, boys? What's up?
How are we doing?
Very good today.
You know, it's been a while since we've been trying to get this podcast organized. We finally get it done. What's been happening between then and when we started doing this stuff?
I'll let the new starter come on. You can answer that question.
Fuck, man. I've been up to a lot of things, really. My life, mainly my yoga. I've recently graduated as a official certified yoga teacher. So
Congratulations.
Super exciting. No, but that's only the start, right? So I've recently received a scholarship for another yoga course as well. Yeah, so seems like the yoga world wants to invest in my stories. So that's super, super fucking exciting.
Yeah, it is. So what is that story they want to invest in?
Look, so I've been telling people that the yoga has been helping me with the work, right? The work is looking inside, acknowledging whatever your feelings are, accepting them, being comfortable and courageous to be able to share that. Because it's not easy, and it's not easy. Like you make some progress and then you slip back, right? Because old habits are hard to change.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot has been happening.
Why do you think it's hard for us to express like those feelings and really dig deep inside ourselves?
That vulnerability, man, it's scary, right? To expose yourself to be judged.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you overcome that fear of judgment? Or is that something you're still working on?
Yeah, I work on it every day, right? And it's just putting yourself out of your comfort zone, really. I've been able to push out of this through, I guess, my travels around the world. I travel a lot by myself. You rock up at a place, you have no idea who anybody is. You rock up in a hostel and there's tens of people, hundreds of people sometimes.
Yeah.
And then you see people just like partying together and at a table together, and you just have to go, hey, can I join you guys? And usually what happens is they're just like, oh yeah, sweet, come join us, have a drink, and then you immediately become best friends and all that, right? So travel for me has been very, very influential in how I've been able to push past certain feelings.
Sometimes it just takes that 5 seconds of courage to just go in there.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, the one thing I like when I was looking at your feed, your Instagram feed, is all your travels that you've been to so many different places. So I wanted to know what brought you to that, like wanting to travel and explore different places.
So one of the most trips that have been impactful for me at the start was 2017, where I went to Iran. I was already going to Bali with my family, right? We're like, oh yeah, family holiday, let's all catch up and chill and make some memories together. And then they wanted to go home earlier. They wanted to spend 2 weeks there, and I'm like, I'm going to take more leave, right? Wait, this is a separate trip. But how I plan my trips is I want it to be cheap. I want to minimize any flights. So I prefer to travel on the road. So when I was in Bali, I went on Skyscanner and I put Bali to anywhere. And then when I looked at the prices of the flights, Sri Lanka came up. And I was like, $200 for a flight to Bali to Sri Lanka. Sweet, let's do it.
Wow.
Right. And then I've typed in Melbourne to anywhere a couple of years later. And that led me to Iran. Because Iran, completely out there. No one knows much about it. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people, and I want to put myself outside of this little bubble that we find ourselves in, the Western world.
Yes.
Right? There's a lot of life out there beyond America's sphere of influence, if you want to put it that way as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I know JP and you have traveled quite a bit. What was your experiences, with Liem?
It was really eye-opening to me because, as you guys know, I love to plan. I love to ensure things go right. I love time boxing stuff. If things goes off plan, I have like plan B, plan C, plan D always in the back of my head. But one thing that I really learned about, and this was probably the India trip we went to, was that I tried to just go in there with a bit less planning, even though my less planning is probably like super planned to this guy, but it's still a bit less planning.
Yes.
But I started to understand kind of a way of, when I'm on these trips, I'm always time boxed, and that pressure of ensuring that things get done, that I want to make the most of this experience is always there, because I'm there for 2 weeks. Liem, how long were you there for? You were like there for
in India,
6 months.
unlimited. I didn't have a time limit.
Yeah, so that's why that's where it kind of changed. And I started thinking about that. I'm like, this is fun. Just doing spontaneous things, doing things where you have a rough understanding that I want to go from A to B, but after B, there is nothing else that I have planned. Let kind of the road guide where I want to go. And it was pretty fun, man. What did we end up doing? We ended up we chilled at Goa for a bit, hired a scooter, crashed a scooter.
What? That was really
You gotta tell that story.
Also, we went to India. Goa is kind of like a partying area in India. A lot of foreigners come there.
Birthplace of Psytrance.
Yeah. So we were there. We were chilling with some of Liem's mates. So this guy, Shoki, who has his own startup kind of thing, took us to this place, and pretty much at the end of the night, I was still all right, but riding a scooter is different to riding a motorbike. Like riding a motorbike, easy front brake, use your legs for the back brake. On a scooter, both of the brakes are at the front. Yeah. So I had to go over this ditch, and me, accelerator on a bit, hand on the front brake, going a bit forward. But when you go over a ditch, your front wheel goes up a bit, yeah? So what happens to those brakes? I just got my hand on the accelerator, slowly riding my brake, front wheel goes up, and I just zoom across the road. But luckily there was like a small ditch that caught me, but man, that was not a fun experience.
2:30 a.m. It's not a great time to, in a foreign country, not a great time to ride a scooter.
Panadol was a substance, right?
And then what you guys,
And then it was funny because like there's just this Indian lady next to us just yelling at us. She's like, because Shoki, he knows the language of course, so he's translating afterwards. He's like, man, she's just yelling at you guys like, bloody foreigners coming into our country thinking they can do anything that they want. Hear me knowing that it was just a small mistake. Like, I've never ridden a scooter before. But that was pretty funny.
What have
Another one that was funny when you were talking about planning, right? This was in Vietnam. I think the first time JP and I traveled together, and we're going from Dalat to Saigon, and I didn't have accommodation booked because I realized I can arrive and they're just, hey, jump in a hotel and look for a room.
Right.
And JP was getting very anxious, super anxious. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it later. I'll book it later. No worries. It's cool. And he was getting pissed at me. He was so worried that we didn't have a place to land on the other side. It was after a flight, right?
Yeah, because that was kind of like my first kind of big solo trip out of Australia, just traveling with a few mates. So traveling with Liem especially. And it was just kind of something where I like to know that I have somewhere to sleep at least. And like I didn't have this concept of like what Liem was saying, where you can just go somewhere and find a place to stay. It's not that hard to do it. But for me, being a solo traveler, first time traveler, of course, you've got that kind of fear of like, am I going to stay in the streets tonight?
So I'm kind of the same where I need everything not everything, but I need some sort of plan to know, because having that unknown feeling of, where am I going to sleep? Am I going to sleep on the street tonight?
That's the best feeling,
It is?
actually. That's the sense of adventure that I like to cultivate.
Right. I think I'm kind of more like a Liem, like I'm just easygoing, like in the moment, like if I plan something, I'm not as anal about it as you guys. I'm just kind of like, we'll see what happens, type of thing.
have you had that experience, like where you actually had to sleep on the street or like in a pretty dodgy place? Or
No, I've always been able to find a place to sleep. There are a few instances where I've had to sleep in, like in Malaysia when I recently, 2019. So I arrived early morning. I like to go Air Asia because I get to spend 10 hours in Malaysia for a stopover, go have some chicken and rice and go catch up with a mate, right? That's a free trip to Malaysia. And it was, I think I landed there at 6 a.m. Nothing was open. So I just like went to the park, slept on a bench. You do things like this because it's just like I'm a male. I'm not scared of getting raped or anything like that. So I've got that going for me, at least. But recently I've traveled with my car, right? So I took out the seats and I put a bed in there, and I was in Nimbin on the way back home to Melbourne on this time, and I just thought $70 to pay for a night in the hotel. I don't really want to pay that. I'll just sleep in the car, and sometimes it feels unsafe because there's people walking around. I didn't know where to park my car, and one point someone's like knocking on the door, "Hey, who's there?" and shone a light in. I'm like, shit myself, and I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night because my whole nervous system was like pumping, right? So you get into like weird situations where it's not fun as well, but it's all part of the fun at the end of the day.
It's kind of, I guess it's kind of that assessment of like, especially for us, I think it's a bit easier, it's a bit lax for us because we're pretty big guys. But it's also that sense of uncertainty, because is that part of our upbringing? Every time you used to travel with your parents, every time you used to travel, like I remember in the Philippines when I used to travel with my parents, it was always, be careful, you're gonna get kidnapped. You're a foreigner, they know you're a foreigner, something bad's gonna happen. And I think I kind of put this when me and Liem went to Philippines at one time. Liem was like, we were in a random town on the way to like Baguio or Banawe, like that kind of region. And this guy's just wandering the streets 10 p.m. at night, and me thinking, this is also the first trip I've had with just Liem, without my parents in Philippines. And like we did Philippines and Vietnam, but then he's just wandering 10 p.m. at night, walking around. I'm like, mate, man, we're gonna die. Well, yeah, I was just like, we're gonna die, man. But then at the end of it, we just ended up walking around. There was like random karaoke bars open at like night, and then I think from there.
Where was I wandering around at 10 p.m.?
I think I can't remember. It was probably in Banawe, because I remember that was the time when we were trying betel nut. Yeah. So we had to, I remember just like during that big hike the next day, and then around that area, and we were just in like this secluded. It was pretty much just like a farm. I remember we were just on a farm.
Yeah.
Like it's a small farm. Then like there's a small strip of like everyone there just chilling. Like no one was there. Like it was town. I think it was just like a stopover town. That's what I remember.
Okay, so I recall you being very anxious in Manila as well, just outside your uncle's place, and it was just some normal streets to me, just outside on the outskirts of the city in the suburbs, and I'm like, hey, what's the big deal with this? I want to go outside and get some like barbecue skewers or something like that, and just chill out. But JP's like, don't go without me.
I think it's an upbringing that we had. Our parents, who every time we went there, they were always like, be careful, be safe. And I think it just continued to cause us that kind of that mentality to say, hey. But now like when we went to Cebu that one time with these guys, like we were just going around doing our own thing, because we knew now, we're like, man, we don't need to be scared, man. These Filipino guys are short.
The natives.
But like it was kind of like that, where it's like you kind of grow out of that fear and angst that your parents instilled into you when you were younger, and kind of go on your own adventure, which comes to being fun. I agree. It was being fun. Like that time we went out to Cebu, like that was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah, I can even think of like bringing it back to like being told things are dangerous, or like in the West, when people say, oh, don't go to the West, it's like really dirty and it's like you might get stabbed or whatever. But we live here, we're walking around, like it's fine. Like we actually live in this circumstance, and we're like, we're fine.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Is that, kind of that generational trauma, kind of you initially traumatized by those thoughts that your parents tell you, but then when you experience it for yourself, it's not as bad as it was said to be.
What's the definition of generational trauma? Because I've got a basic understanding, but what's your
understanding of it?
My understanding is experiences that happened in previous generations where, and I'll use this as an example because it kind of resonates with us, is that parents coming from a third world country having that mentality that everything, you have to always watch your back, you always have to take care of each other, take care of family, you always have to make sure you have a better future. It's about that security. There we go. Security is a big word. Like back then for third world countries, it's all about security, because if you don't get food, you just end up on the streets, you end up dying.
It's survival.
It's survival.
Yeah.
But then that kind of mentality, and then you having your parents being the first generation to come to a country where you don't really need that security as much. Yes, it's good. It's good to have a job. It's good to have food. But some of that stuff, especially in Australia, man, we're so lucky because it's just handed to us. But it doesn't. With that being said, it's still your parents have instilled this mentality that you need to have a job that's secure for you. I said this in the last podcast. I said it in the previous podcast as well, man. Be a nurse, be an engineer, be a doctor, be an accountant. Yeah, it's like all those things, because their main focus is that I want you to have job security so that you can succeed, because that's what I was taught to do, and that's what I had to do back when I was living at home, back in my homeland in Philippines. And I think that is what I call generational trauma, because it's kind of instilling it down to you. And now that's just a small part, because like other people's ancestors have had it worse. I'll probably go to Liem for this, because like your parents fled Vietnam.
Yeah.
Like it's that, comparing someone fleeing to where our parents kind of left willingly, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
How did your parents leave?
Well, my mum's auntie came to Australia first. And then after a while, it's kind of like, one person's in Australia, let's try bring the rest over.
Okay,
so that was a bit easier. And that's what I'm saying, like where other people, they come to Australia as refugees because they fled from war-torn countries.
How did your auntie make it here?
Good question.
That's the exact same thing with me. My uncle came here first, and then they brought my dad over. But I have no idea how they got here.
Yeah, you should find out.
I should.
I'll be curious to see and hear. But so I've spoken about this before, and it's this big realization for me, right? So I was outside my grandma's house applying for the yoga scholarship, right? The first one. And I made the realization that I come from 2 generations of refugees.
Right.
So it's not just my parents, it's my grandparents as well on both sides. So it was 1954 when you can Google it and read on Wikipedia, Operation Passage to Freedom. So 1 million Northern Vietnamese people, including the Catholic community, which my family were a part of, went to the south and had to leave everything behind. The communists were taking over. They had divided the country, and it just wasn't safe to be there anymore. And this was in times of famine where my grandpa would tell me, look, you'd have like a bit of rice to eat and stuff like that, but I had nothing, right? And then, they came over, made a new life in the south of Vietnam, and then time passed, but the communist kind of movement was happening and continuing, and the war broke out. And after the war, obviously my parents hung out there for a little bit, saw that, look, this is no place to live, there's no place to stay. So like millions of other Vietnamese people, jumped on boats and fled. But that's it. It really, really makes me question life and how I've been able to get here, right? Like I look at myself with a bit of privilege, but I look around and I see so much more privilege. Imagine your parents had, imagine your parents were like, came from the English First Fleet or something like that, right? And they've been able to establish themselves, and they've been here for like 200 years or something like that, right? And you go down to Rye or Sorrento, and you look at all that old money, right? Money that's been passed down for generations. And I guess my family haven't been able to do that because we've had to start from scratch for 2 generations. And now that we've landed in Australia, we've got a base and we've got opportunities here, then we can start building what we're building, right? So, but the trauma is what you're saying is that mindset of always seeking security because in the past they didn't have it, right? And what my parents would have had and what my grandparents would have had is a scarcity mindset. So we've got nothing. Let's get something. And education is the pathway to that. So that's why you'll see Asian parents crack the whip, tiger parents and go do your homework or get a good job, go work for the government, get a government job. That's always stable. And I'm guessing that's why when you tell your parents or Asian parents that you want to become an artist or a dancer or something like that, then you're considered a failure.
Exactly, right?
It's just that stereotype. Yeah.
It's not understood like that creative realm. Especially I would say in the Asian families, like I received that, and it's tough to receive when it's something you're so passionate about, and you don't have that support. So what was your experiences as well, Gerald? You had that with engineering, and then obviously you turned into
I think with the parents, it's because back in their home country, having the title of I'm a nurse, I'm a doctor, they're really prestigious things. And they're like, okay, aim for those things. They're really high. But saying that you're a videographer or like some sort of artist, they'd be like,
isn't that a hobby, bro?
Yeah, like do people make money out of that? They still don't know that you can. That is something that you can make money from or be in a secure position in. So. Yeah.
What about you, Zujin? What was your experiences pursuing fashion?
We need him on the mic, man.
Come on. Have some experience, man. This is Zujin, our intern for Okiru. What's going on, Zujin?
Not too bad. Just chilling.
So what are your experiences with your family pursuing what you're doing? Fashion business, was it?
Fashion marketing.
Fashion marketing.
Yeah. Definitely was not easy because I told them that I wanted to pursue law at first. And they were really like pumped up. They were really hyped about it. Like, let's go. But then truthfully, what fashion did to me, it's like it made me express who I am and express my individuality. So I decided to pursue that. They weren't happy at first. Like I won't get too much into it, but I think once they saw how passionate I was and how much aspirations I have for this, how many goals. And I think they started to accept it slowly though. And now I'm like towards the end of my degree and I keep showing them how much I've done for this degree and they're really, really proud. So I think that's all about, oh, sorry. It's like all about just showing how passionate and how much you're willing to sacrifice.
That's it.
And I think the good thing about this and a good thing about that I really love about Okiru is we're able to create this community of people who have had these struggles of high expectations from parents, from friends, from family who haven't been as supportive to them, and they're able to kind of say, hey guys, we are here for you. We are here to work together. This is a community for us to rise up. I said it. Rise up, get up.
Rise together, man.
Yeah, and rise together. And that's what I really love about Okiru is that we're able to just create this community of comfort with each other.
So like the other day, Gerald and I got some pretty good news from someone because of their newsletter. Like she messaged us. I was like, I don't know. It's like, thank you guys for, I'm getting emotional because of it. Like, the results are kind of showing. She was like, oh, because of the newsletter I sent you guys, like I got a big project because of it. And just like, wow, we gave a platform for these people to share their stories and stuff. You don't know where it could lead to. Yeah, of course. Right? Sometimes it might take a long period of time, but if you keep doing what you're doing, eventually some results will show. And some of those seeds you plant will flower, will blossom. It's just being patient enough for that. And like, we don't want to see anyone like give up on their dreams. Like we had another friend, I won't say who it is, but a part of his business is like kind of falling apart. And to me, it was kind of like, I don't want to see your dreams come crashing down. So I told him like, hey man, whatever happens, let us know what happened. Let us know the outcome and jump on board with us. And we'll figure out a way we can rise together. We can figure this out. You know, I want to see you succeed in whatever your passions are. So let's come together and we'll work this out. You know, and it's just like, man, like, thank you for easing my mind. And that's what you have to do. Sometimes we just need that comfort for each other, you know? And it's just using what we have, the tools we have, and bringing value in any way we can. That's where we kind of stand for, right?
That's beautiful. Yeah. Building each other up rather than tearing each other down, because it's very easy to do that, right? It's literally, it's very easy just to hate, and you don't realize flippant comments that you make that could really bring people down, right? If people have poured their heart and soul into drawing a picture, and you're like, oh, well, that looks weird, and they're like, never draw again. And you don't realize the type of impact that you can make just with your words. And I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I don't have a filter.
If you're guilty of this,
but that's it, right? Like words are free, but they leave an impact on all of our lives. So we have to we obviously have a filter, but like we have to just be able to watch what we say.
So how many lives have you destroyed then, Jerry?
I'm thinking about that.
You got to have a lot of ghosts in your dreams now, man.
But that's the thing. It's like, it's something of I've learned, and for the past few years, it's been something where I've learned not to make, I guess, as much negative comments, because the thing is, like, it's a balance. Life is a balance of good and bad. There's people out there who are amazing, who always share great stuff, but if there's a great person out there, there's going to be someone who kind of has that dark emotions as well. And it's not to blame that bad person or that dark person is to blame. It's like they were probably grown up in a society where they lacked the good as well, and that's what they were taught. So even today, like, I've learned that some of the comments that I would have made back then in the past, man, just like looking at myself back in the past, man, I was like misogynistic, man. I was partially racist. partially racist. But those were the things for me. But moving forward, I've learned, I've taught myself, I've read up on certain things to be accepting of what people want, who people are. And I think it's something that's really good. And it's probably like comes back, like I said, and to bring this back to it probably comes back to that upbringing of who you were and who you were around. Because back then, of course, I was around Asian friends, Asian families, especially the Filipino community, man. Like, how much do these fellas talk, man?
It's all gossip, man. All chica, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why are you so embedded and focused on other people's lives when you should be focusing on yourself? Spreading positivity to people, to be able to say, hey, man, wow, that's a really good drawing. That's way better than I can do. Here's, if you want some feedback, here's some feedback from me, but I'm not an expert on it.
Exactly.
Man. And if people ask me for feedback, I'm not going to be like, nah, bro, man, like, go figure that yourself. Or if some people ask me for help for like technology, I love technology. I'm going to be there and be like, oh, here's some areas that you can improve on. Here's some stuff that I want you to improve on. Because at the end of the day, I just want to see you do better. That's what it is.
Exactly, man.
That's growth.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
growth.
Yeah.
That's growth. Wow, man. Like, I don't know.
That's great.
Yeah,
it's because and the learnings that you've had on looking back on yourself. Well, I think when you can look back on yourself and cringe a little bit, it means that you're growing.
That discomfort you see in yourself, right?
Just shit, I did that.
It's like you're shedding your old self. Like,
it is. So you're changing each and every day.
When does that happen? So
Gerald asks, when does that happen?
Yeah, when does it happen? So there's a point like where, like when I look myself back in the past.
Come back.
Tap it. Thank you, Zujin, for coming on.
Little cameo. There we go.
Cameo.
Yeah, because if I look back at myself, back in like primary school and stuff like that, I was bullying. I was a bully and stuff like that. I was
You're
like,
a bully.
Why
you bully?
yeah, I was like, the person I look back in the past, like, I was like, oh, yeah, you cringe. You're like, oh, I can't believe I was that type of person. When do you think that happens, where you kind of look back and you go, okay, I want to be a different person now. I realize that my faults and my mistakes of my past, I want to be someone different. When do you reckon that realization happens?
So for me, the person that you are is always there, right? That inner child. I've read somewhere that your ego is similar to a kid, your own kid, when you were 7 years old, right? So your environment, your parents speaking to you, if you had a negative upbringing or you had a harsh upbringing, I should say, then the voices that are speaking to you when you're thinking, that's of your 7-year-old self. So that 7-year-old kid is maybe trying to protect you and then is fearful, or sometimes that kid could be like, no filter, just go out, rah, 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 right? It could be, it's different for everybody. And so your question was,
when did that trigger? When does that trigger of growth happen?
Well, for me, I've just been able to observe myself and realize that I've just got to let that little kid play. Right. And that's how I've been able to be so much more comfortable in my own skin. And it's just be a kid again. Just go seek your fun, go seek your pleasure. But the word for me is just play, because work can become play. And then you look back and you're not trying to hide anymore, because that kid that's running around, jumping on the swings and stuff like that, that could be life right now for adults, right? You just have to cultivate that and not hide that away.
Like embracing your inner child.
Inner child. And to become a success, it's just letting that little kid live. That's for me. I don't think I answered your question directly.
But with that kind of in mind, like when you say that, let that 7-year-old play, is it the 7-year-old of who you were in the past? Or is that 7-year-old that you wanted to be in the past? Because I'm going to say this is that some 7-year-olds did not have the opportunity to play. Some 7-year-olds did not have that kind of, what most people would say is that playful, joyful, that kind of inquisitive mindset of a 7-year-old to say, oh, well, look at this leaf. There's so many patterns on this leaf kind of thing. Like, so when you talk about that 7-year-old, that playful 7-year-old, is it your own 7-year-old in the past, or is it a 7-year-old that you think you would have enjoyed to be?
Yeah, the 7-year-old that I was, because for some reason, as I moved from primary school to high school, right, that little flip, for me, I just went internal for some reason. I went quieter, and I stopped talking to. Not that I stopped talking. I was probably too in my head for some reason, right? And being able to pull that kid out again, like I'm still processing this every day, but it's a bit hard for me to articulate at the moment, because it's not something I express and I speak about every day, right? So I guess being here and talking to you guys has triggered and will become part of my practice, where I reflect. I'm like, who's that kid that I want to cultivate and continue to do so? Like, but for me now, like when I go out and I do handstands, for instance, or I go kick the footy, that brings me joy, because that's that little kid again, just roaming around and no filters, but cultivating that, but having the knowledge now to not tear everybody down and tell them they've got a shit drawing and continue to build people up, right? Well, you've got the sensibilities of an adult now, man. We're almost 30, you and I, and Roldy's like, don't look at me. But we're not kids anymore, but at the same time, we are every day the biggest kids that
Yeah.
Where I look in the mirror, I'm still a huge kid, and I've got a big grin on my face, and people tell me that you exude and bring so much energy and joy, and that's because I've allowed my inner child to play, I think.
I think that's a really good thing, because like just thinking back in it, where that phase between that, like you said, primary school and high school, I'm going to say from high school also to uni, that kind of transition of you doing your degree and then finishing uni and getting a full-time job, it kind of, or not even just a full-time job, but to finishing high school and just getting into a passion that you're into, it kind of tells you that I'm not going to be able to kind of support myself for the rest of just have my parents support myself for the rest of my life. I want to do something for me. And like what I found is that drive to be able to become an adult, and I say become an adult, man, I've only started becoming an adult. Like you talk about your inner child coming out, man. I think my inner child was always with me. That's why I was able to just have no filter and just say dumb. Like becoming an adult has kind of made me realize that actually I have more than just me now. Like you think about the future that you want to have. Like for me especially, at someday I want to get married. I want to have a kid. I want that. I was always family oriented. And I always wanted to kind of have a kid, play with my kid, and ensure that they had a really good lifestyle. Man, I don't even know where I was going with this story, but like, it's kind of that,
That transition from high school to uni you were talking about.
Yeah, so that transition between high school and uni kind of taught me, because at high school, I felt that I was a floater. I never had a clique that I grew up with. And that's potentially because the high school I went to was very white dominated. Like, it was very white dominated, where I'd be hanging out with internationals because they'd love to study, and I was always brought with that uplifting, that upbringing of you have to be studious. Then after that, I'd be hanging out with the kids playing soccer on the basketball courts for some reason, or playing down ball with like the WOG, the ethnic kids. But then when I went to uni, it's kind of where I started to say, oh wow, I'm actually really kind of associating myself to these type of people, because they know who I am. They know my upbringing. Like Liem, I met Liem during high school, but we only got really close during uni. And just understanding that, we clicked straight away pretty much. Yeah, like I remember that one time where orientation day, me being late, I come in there, I'll just see this other Asian guy, tall Asian guy, just like looking at the back as well. I'm like, oh mate, is this the class? And it's like, see this guy.
Hey, wait.
I know you, man. Whatever happened? Like, what's up? And then from there, we just, classes together.
No, that was orientation like the year before uni, right? And then first day of uni, I remember we're at Swanston Street, standing in the corner of Latrobe and Swanston, and I'm just pushing the light. And then I saw JP. I'm like, oh shit! Hey, you doing that course? Oh yeah, we are too. And then the rest is history.
We've been through heaps together, because like halfway through uni, he changed degrees to do something that he was more passionate about. But that kind of friendship just never dwindled down. You've been traveling. We haven't seen each other. We come back together. We connect, and it's just like back to normal.
Like time hasn't passed.
And I think we kind of connect really well, because I think we both have that forward plan of like, we want to do better for others as well. We kind of want to help others. We kind of want to ensure that we just don't want to be bad people.
Yeah, I guess you're talking about vision. Maybe we're looking further than just tomorrow. And I think that's how we've been able to connect, because you've been wanting to build your career, you're working and building a startup now and things like that. And we've just been able to, connect really well over the years.
I want to go back to this. How do you do your analysis, reflection, introspection?
I write every day, and I have been since I've gotten back from India. So since March last year. So since COVID started, that was 2020 and 2021 have been really good to me, to be honest. And I was at the bar yesterday and told one of my mates, and I felt kind of bad saying that the last 2 years have been great, right? Because the period, I sought change before COVID, right? So I quit my high paying job. I went over to travel, to explore India, to one day make it to Europe, right? That was my ultimate plan, to go there, look for a job and not settle there, but just continue the adventure. And I've been very lucky in the sense that I caught the last direct flight from Delhi to Melbourne on the 19th of March. So the country closed down. I could have been stuck there, and India was going through a lot of pain like the rest of the world, right? But their pain was quite brutal. Like I had other foreigner mates who were stuck there, and they had to rush to the airport. People were hitting them with sticks because they thought it was like a foreign disease and things like that. But well, going to introspection, yeah. So through my travels, I realized that I needed to develop some practices that kept me sane, because the amount of sites that you could visit while you're on the road, you get sick of it, right? You've seen one temple, you've seen it all. You've seen one church, you've seen it all, right? You get sick of it. Church fatigue, or whatever you want to call it. And so I developed I call it my 5 healing practices, right? So it's, for me, that I developed this while on the road, was music, meditation, movement, reading and writing. So movement could be yoga, could be stretching, it could be going for a run, or bouldering, right? Meditation is meditation, to sit down, take stock of where you are and focus on your breathing. Music, at that time, I've been trying to learn the Indian bamboo flute, right? So play a bit of that. Reading, to consume some beautiful content on my Kindle, read some books. I was reading some Tantra philosophy from Osho at the time, and that was beautiful to live and feel while I was in India. And the last one is writing. So it's just journaling and just writing my thoughts and feelings down. So what that has evolved, the writing has evolved for me, is a daily practice now. So I'll wake up at 6:30, go do my washing, and then put the kettle on, go back in bed, coffee, and I'll just type a stream of consciousness through my fingers into the keyboard, and just, that's the time where it's really heartfelt. Right? There's no other distractions for me, and for the rest of the day, my head is on. Right? You're doing, you are thinking, you're planning, you're strategizing, you're getting shit done, right? And it's hard to get shit done with the heart in this type of world. So that time for me when I write and I feel is very sacred for me. So to wrap that up, they're called my 5 healing practices. And in yoga philosophy, it's called your sadhana, so your spiritual practice, right? So that's been mine for the last 2 years, and I've felt amazing doing it and just taking care of myself in that manner.
Awesome. Yeah, I asked that question because maybe people who listen to this might, what tools can I use to help myself too? Yeah, and it would be good to see what other people use for their introspection, their analysis of their life. Do you guys? What about you guys? Do you do any of that, or any habits that you do?
I think for me, it's the writing as well. There's a lot of things that you can jot down because you're actually present and you're not distracted by any other thing, and then you can write those thoughts. And I put like what do you call it? Things that was giving me joy on this certain day, or things that were taking away my energy. So you can kind of see what things were like to avoid, and what things you can do more often. So that's the one that I'm trying to start doing. I did like a little bit of meditation, but to be honest, I'm not really sure if I'm doing it right. But as long as it's giving me calm, I feel like it is. So yeah, a little bit of that stuff.
I think for me, man, like I'm not a very literature type of person. I'm not a reader. I'm not a writer. But for me, I think the thing that gives me that kind of, I guess, thinking back reflection as well is I like to converse with people. I like to, me and Jasper have all these talks all the time, and we just talk about random shit. Like it's really good because like it's good to have a different opinion, but on top of that, it's also kind of not only talking to people that I'm close with is talking to other people out there who, and I brought this up last time, who aren't part of your diversity quotient or your DQ. They're not part of your diversity group. So I'll take people who, for example, I've got one workmate, she's 40 years old, and she's a really good technical mentor to me because she's grown up in a world where she's been working for the past 15 years in an engineering field. She's seen the field kind of grow from being super heavily male oriented to kind of getting that more diverse kind of balance.
Yeah.
But even still now, she kind of, when I have a chat with her, there's some times where she was talking about even in some meetings where she is the most knowledgeable, you still have people questioning her, and she feels that they're only questioning her because she is a female.
Okay.
And it kind of like puts that into your perspective of like, oh wow, like, have I never felt that because I'm a male, I'm a man? Have I never felt these kind of things at work because I don't feel, what's the word, intimidated by them? Maybe just because I don't give a fuck. But like, and the thing is, like, it's really disheartening to kind of hear that from her, because she's 10 times smarter than I am. She's like, I see her work practices, her work ethics are really, really professional, and she's someone that I like to grow into. But that's back to the question. That's kind of one thing that I like to do, is kind of just like talk with people, talk with different people, and kind of get their understandings of certain situations.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing is just like it goes back to my top priority, which is always going to be family and friends for me. And that's something that I've learned in the past 5 years, is that I'd rather have a smaller circle of friends, smaller circle of family, rather than be that popular guy who just has hundreds, thousands of friends. Because at the end of the day, man, like, I think about, if I were to die, who's going to be there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's one thing I've realized recently as well. It's, your point is your practice and your reflection is through connection, right? And that's really important for you. I'm obviously much more introverted than you. I recharge just by myself, right? And but connection is really important to have, and talk real shit, not just the superficial, but to be able to dig through and be courageous with what you share as well. And it's definitely not easy, and that's why whenever somebody does share something vulnerable with me, I thank them for sharing, right? Because it takes courage to do so. Yeah.
Let's go back to that topic of vulnerability. Like, a lot of people see vulnerability as like a weakness, and for me, like, one of my coaches is like, one thing I see in you, your strengths, because I'm like, I don't know what my strengths are. It's like your vulnerability. I'm like, because I can be just open with people, and that's how I build my connections with people, is being vulnerable with them. And usually when you're vulnerable, people are inclined to be vulnerable to you too, because you've let them into your space, you've let them into your area. Was your, how were you able to become vulnerable? It's pretty hard to do so.
It is. And one experience really helped me become more vulnerable. So when I was in India, January 2020, right?
Just before the pandemic and everything.
Just before the pandemic. So this is the story where I cried for the first time in 10 years, right? I've, for some reason, been unable to do so. I went to my grandpa's funeral and my auntie's funeral maybe a couple of months before that, or a year before that. And I found myself with dry eyes at the funeral and at the cemetery. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Is there something wrong with me? Like, I can't physically cry. And I thought that to be, something was wrong with me. And that was it's not a good feeling, right? If you think you're broken and all that. But in Goa, it's it's a very hippy dippy place, if you want to call it that, right? So I went to an ecstatic dance festival. So ecstatic dance is movement in meditation with a DJ playing some tribal music and different kinds of music to kind of get you into that space. It's like a rave, but there's no talking, there's no shoes, and you talk with your movements. And you dance, and the idea is that you move and you continue to move, and it's based off different maps and concepts from this lady called Gabrielle Roth, who does the 5 rhythms. So I was lucky to find this practice because it allowed me to move, allowed me to get into my body, out of my head, and express myself freely, right? And I was able to shed demons through there. So on day 3, we had a cacao ceremony where we drank cacao chocolate that was made in a ceremonial fashion, and there was 100 people in a big circle, and they got a ladle from the big pot and then put it in a cup, and then we all passed it around. So each and every cup was handled by each and every person, right? And I can see the holiness and the vibes, you could say, as you pass a cup and you want it, you wish the best for whoever's going to consume it, and it's very careful. So you put a lot of love into it, and there was a lot of love that was cultivated there. And they introduced the space. They said, look, this is the 5 elements. You've got candles, you've got people playing the Native American flute, and it was made very special, right? And as I was dancing, I was moving. I've never shaked my body that hard. Like I let go completely, and I was like a demon possessed. But at one point, I was looking at the ocean, and given it was January 2020, Australia was on fire. And that was terrible. Everybody felt helpless during that time, right? And one of my best mates was in hospital as well, and he had been in there for a month or 2 by that point. And all I was doing was looking at the ocean or standing up and just wanting to receive that energy and pray for rain. And so the rain did come, but it came out of my eyes, right? And I just let that happen, right? I was like, oh man. And I crouched on the floor in like a child's position, and somebody was around there as well. And they're called space holders, because this type of practice and movement does bring up a lot of emotions as well. So they're there to make sure that you're okay, and to be a steady hand and a shoulder to lean on. And as I was crying, I just let myself sob, and it felt very foreign. I'm like, oh shit, what is happening? This is crying. Oh man, cool. and it just came out, and their hand was just on my back saying, it's okay, let it go. And I tried to turn back to face them, to thank them. And they're like, no. So that anonymous hand that was there has been very impactful for me. And ever since that moment, I've been able to share a bit more, right? And I guess society these days, we're all in the mind and what we can achieve, but we forget about the body and the feelings that the body holds as well. So that's what I'm going to do with my new yoga course. So it's a 100-hour course in trauma-informed yoga. And it is bringing embodied somatic practices so that you can come back into the body, feel release. And then what that should do is, I don't know, lift your spirits and help heal you and help allow you to be yourself without judgments from society.
Man, thank you for sharing that. Like, I really feel it in my heart, like your experience. Like, to be in such emotional incarceration for so long, to not cry for 10 years, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, and I told JP this story, like, as soon as he got to India, right? And he's like, oh, what the hell, I cry all the time. Or my mate Shoki's like, oh yeah, I cry all the time. I'm like, what? I didn't know that. Like, I've just been probably suppressing this whole time and just like stuffing it down layers and layers deep. And if you want to go back to generational trauma, it's because my old man is never vulnerable, right? He doesn't show any of his emotions. And I find that Asian dads can be like that, right? Very stoic, very... If he lets out his frustrations, he might just like try and slap you or something, but you don't... I've thought about this, and the range of emotions is very small and very like what he wants to show, right? And it's probably the same from his old man.
Yeah.
And my great-grandpa or something like that, right? So, and that's just through my observations of my family. But as I look around as well, like the whole world's been war-torn for ages. War has shifted and made people move. Like World War II would have been all the Italians and Europeans moving around, escaping from Nazi Germany and the like, right? And a lot of them would have come to Australia, and all the kind of diggers of the Vietnam War, and you go through war and you experience that kind of trauma, and you stuff it down as well, because that's what men do. Men don't cry, right? Exactly. and yeah, it's just, but you can feel the shift in society, right? It's okay to be vulnerable, but at the same time, there is, I also think there's a time and place to process it as well, not to just dump it on everybody because vulnerability is okay. But look, it's obviously a very personal thing. So it's really up to the individual how they want to share it and share their own story.
And when you talk about that stuff, like the one in terms of like what you just said in terms of being able, there's a time and place for that. One of the things that I find about when you are ready to be vulnerable and when you are ready to kind of tell your stories, to ensure as well that that person receiving that story is also ready to receive it. Because sometimes it's hard when you want to share something really heartfelt. You trust this person. It's a really open space. Yet if you go to them and tell their story, they might just go back and it's like, cool. That range of emotion that they get, and then it might not be something that you're expecting as well. But also it could also be something where you want to share something with them and they're also in that state of kind of depression or anxiety, or not in a really they're kind of like not well, and it might kind of lead them to be more like, oh, if this person's feeling the same way that I am, and he's kind of like a role model to me or a mentor to me, what am I worth now? Like that's why sometimes for me I find that yes, it's good to be vulnerable with certain people. That time and place one is something really big, but sometimes it also scares me because it also, if that impacts someone in a negative way, it's like, fuck, is that on me?
What do you mean impact them in a negative way?
So like I said, if someone's like, if you're kind of like in I'm trying to put it, what's like.
So you're meaning you're emotionally dumping on them if they're not ready, and correct. You're just expecting them to take it all on board.
Yes.
And it's just like, oh shit, he just dumped all this shit on me, and now I've got to go deal with it, right?
Kind of, yes.
Because it's a release for you, but the other person's like, oh shit, I caught the ball. What do I do with this now? I have it back.
Because I'll tell the story where I had this mate who he went through bone marrow transplant. So he had some form of I don't remember what the disease was called, but he needed a bone marrow transplant. And what a bone marrow transplant does is that you have to have what is it, radiotherapy? Is it radiotherapy? Chemotherapy kind of thing, where you have to kill all the bone marrow inside your body before they can inject you with a bone marrow transplant. So he came from a pretty decent, pretty healthy, good-looking guy to, when I first met him, I was like shocked. I was like, what the hell? Who is this guy? He's some like 6'5", brittle guy, no hair on his head and no hair on his face. And I'm like, what the hell? And then I heard his voice, and I've never been so just dumbfounded. I was just like, what?
Sorry.
Yeah. And then from there, of course, he's been recovering for the past 2 years to be a bit more healthy. And it came to a point where I was just having a chat with him. I'm having I think we were just out after work, post-work drinks. And he just came up to me and was like, man, like, I don't know what I have left in life. All I care about is work. I don't have a partner. I'm living by myself. And this is a really close mate. So like, I was like, what, my head being an engineer, what can I do? What can I do?
How can I help you solve this problem?
and it came to it where I'm just like, I started feeling helpless. I'm like, every day I worried, is this guy still alive? And like, it kind of made me feel really down about myself, increased my stress, because not only did I have to think about myself and my problems that I was having during that time, but it was also him who I had to start thinking about.
I think when you're the person receiving that advice, that like they're being vulnerable with you, you have to be very stable emotionally for yourself, because like you said, like when you're telling your vulnerabilities or your stories to them, they take it on board as well. They're also got to be worried about you, because obviously they don't want you to, you could have that same worry. So yeah, like psychologists, like when we were listening to that podcast with Joe Rogan, and how they're getting emotionally, they're getting dumped.
Yeah.
Like all this negativity, you hear it all the time, but who's like they themselves need psychologists to like listen to them and their all the issues they're going through as well, because they're just receiving all this thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it's also hard because I guess as males we always want to fix, like we want to be the ones that problem solve. At the end of the day, the harsh reality is it's not our responsibility. Like as much as we want to help people, sometimes there's a limit to how much we can do, and sometimes all we can do is support. And whatever that is, I don't know, it's up to you how much you want to support someone. But like, let's be honest, like, I have no obligation to help you, and you have no obligation to help me. Everything I do, if it's out of love, you don't have to do that back for me. Like I'm doing this because I want to, right? It's hard, especially if you're going through a certain situation, you're like, I want to help this person. I want to do more, but at the same time, you have responsibility for your own life as well. It's hard, man. It's hard. And it's a tough subject to talk about because sometimes our resources aren't enough to help everyone. We want to help.
Yeah, we can only really do as much as we can.
Yeah.
And unless the person is saying directly, I need help, sometimes they're just there to have someone to listen, like, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable because I know this person I can trust. So they say it because they trust this person. And it's just not really to ask for help, but just more to have this unloading of things. Yeah. Because when I came to you guys before that one time and I emotionally dumped my stuff, I wasn't really... because I wasn't really looking for answers or anything, but just to have someone to like know, like, oh, you're gonna be okay. Now we're here to, whatever you need, and that was enough for me to be like, okay, I can start standing up on my feet again. So it's just that.
It's just a good feeling that like you have that support group, you have that those people to go to. Because I think for me especially, that's what I really enjoy about like my close circle of friends is that I'm able just to say, hey, you're not going to judge me for the dumb shit that I do. Yeah. and I do a lot of dumb shit. We love you for that. And that's the thing. It's like I'm able to go to you guys and just say, here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I need. I just need a shoulder to listen to, and I know you guys will be there listening. So,
like my missus was telling me yesterday, like it was a weekend and her boss was like on her ass about something at work, and she's like, sometimes all I need is just to rant to you. And for you to just say, that sucks. Like, you don't have to say anything else, just listen.
It's funny you say that because, like, and this is where I talk about growth. This is where let's go back to growth. Is that back then, like, me being, like I said, I'm always going to say, me being a problem-solving type of person. I'm an engineer. I want to solve problems. the same thing happened to me where my missus would be coming to me for problems. And I'd be like, oh, but you can do this. Oh, but how about this? How about that? And it came to the point where, and I was just probably ignorant about it, but she just told me, it's like, sometimes I just want you to listen.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, shit.
Yeah.
True. Man. I was like, too
Listening
much.
takes so much energy as well. But you have to be so attentive to what's being said. And, sometimes we're like, oh, what should I say next? So, how can I help this person? Sometimes it's just like, focus all your attention on that person.
Well, that's a skill in itself. It's the ability to hold space, to listen but not respond.
Exactly.
To just be there.
Yeah.
Really, and just being that grounding presence that the other person is seeking.
Yeah.
Or everything is easier said than done.
Yeah,
right? Because when somebody is coming to you with their problems, my natural instinct is like, all right, how do we fix this?
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
what can we do? All right, okay, you've told me this and I've got this angle, and but again, just an ear to listen to.
Exactly. Some heavy shit. I was like trying to take everything in, like all the stuff we're talking about. Like we haven't had these type of discussions in a while, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's like necessary for us to do this.
It's good to get different perspectives of what other people think. Like, I've been hit too many times, guys, man. I feel like everyone knows the stuff that I'm going to say, man.
Yeah, but back to writing, it's a way for me to become vulnerable as well, right? So back in the day, because I've been writing and journaling for like 8 years now, right? And I'll tell you a good thing about it. I can look back in my records and look what I thought about every August for the last 8 years and understand what my mindset was at that time, what I was feeling, maybe what I was doing, what I ate, who I met. It's very powerful.
It is.
Right? And you can observe your growth that way. And back then, I can't remember what topics they were, but it would be hard for me to admit certain feelings, right? And hard for me to release that even into words to myself, right? Because sometimes your ego protects you and you kind of lie to yourself just to protect your feelings and protect negative feelings from coming up. But then I think over the years, as you mature, as you understand that not everything is out there to kill you, and it's okay to talk real shit with the boys as well, and you're not going to get judged for that, then it's a snowball effect. So you get more confident in being able to do this. You get more confident in being able to hold space for others and share. Yeah. So writing for me has been like so key and so important in my introspective practice.
For sure. Like one thing I realized the past couple months is that you're talking about how you focus on your body, your mind, and like meditation and stuff like that to create alignment. One thing I realized doing like the challenges that I've done, like the running challenge, and then going through a lot of different struggles and stuff like that, forced me to really reflect on my life. And one thing I only realized recently was that unified body, the mind, body, and the soul. Like it's so important for us to align those three together and, find that balance and harmony between those things. So what I was doing for my body was working out, doing something hard every day. So like really, doing those pull-ups, push-ups, going for those runs and putting myself in those difficult situations, and then coming back and reflecting on who I was as a person and like really digging deep into my soul. And for me, that was looking in front of the mirror and just talking to myself, like building my own relationship with who I was.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like we're so focused on the relationship we have with everyone else and the connections we have with everyone else. How often have we had that relationship with our own self? So what put me in that point was reading a book called The High Five Habit. And something as simple as just high-fiving yourself in the mirror can create such big impacts on your life at the start of the day. Like it's hard for you to say something negative about yourself when you're in the action of doing a high five, because a high five is associated with encouragement and, you know, congratulations. And I know it seems stupid
No, it
because
seems awesome.
even for me, when I first started doing it, I'm like, why the hell am I doing this? But then you smile at yourself. It's like, you know, like it feels good.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
And then that got me to really talk to myself. And I have prompts on my mirror and it has stuff like, oh, how are you feeling today? What changes do you want to make? If you don't make those changes, what is your life going to be like? And really being honest with who I was, you know? And sometimes it gets really vulnerable. And you're like, shit, like, oh man, I'm going through these thoughts. And really trying to figure out everything and finding your values, you know? So yeah, like that was, for me, that was like my journey in such a short period of time. But I feel so much happier now knowing I love who I am, but not satisfied where I am.
Well, at the end of the day, we, as in your own self and your own internal self, you're stuck with yourself for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody else is temporary if you want to think about it that way.
Yeah.
So being friends with yourself and cultivating the grounded spirit, or just simply put, being friends with yourself is a very important thing, which we are not taught to do at all, right? We all are taught to help others and all that, but it comes back to help others, you got to help yourself first. And it's a common thought and of you're on an airplane and the oxygen mask comes down, they teach you to fit yourself first before you help others, because if you're suffocating, you can't help anybody else. And it's as simple as that. So as selfish as it is, it's what we got to do. And that's some of my guiding principles. I want to be so damn fucking good for myself so that I could help others.
It's like this quote, it's like you have to be selfish so that you can be selfless. It's starting with yourself. Whew. Damn, man. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
Let's bring this baby into landing. All right. I guess, do you want to do the 3 questions? With,
let's do the.
all right, so
Yeah, Liem. My man.
for you too, man. So 3 questions. What are you grateful for? What have you realized? And what is a question you want to ask yourself or the listeners?
What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for a lot of things, and mainly for all the experiences that I've had. And I'm grateful for myself to push through certain decisions like quitting my job, or to leave Melbourne and and go on an adventure and journey. So I thank myself for making those decisions to seek change, to seek adventure. My realization, I'm going to reuse what I realized about my double refugee kind of upbringing, right? Because there's a lot there, and I'm continuing to process that. And it's going to take a lifetime's of work, right? But being appreciative for what's happened as well, because I can't change that. And I've got stories to tell now, and I've got so that trauma that my family has, it allows me to connect with others through their trauma potentially, and it gives me, I guess, some lived experience to I guess help others.
Yeah.
So the last question is,
What is a question you want to ask yourself or people listening?
the question I've been asking myself this year is, who am I? The biggest
that's a good one.
and greatest question ever.
That's it, man.
Right? It'll take you many lifetimes to answer that one yourself. So have fun.
Exactly, man. Now, I think we could unpack a lot more and talk about a lot more different topics and subjects. It'll be good to have you on again and see where our growth journeys have taken us.
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah. Where can people find you, man?
I'm on Instagram, Liem Nguyen, LIMENUGEN.
That's it, man.
Awesome. Did you want to shout out the yoga practice, the places, and where can they
find you teaching?
find your teachings?
Yes, I am teaching a community class on the 12th of December at Assembly Yoga.
Yeah.
So that's in West Footscray. So it's going to be my first time teaching in a proper studio, right? So you're all invited. It'd be good to see you guys there.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's going to be, I'm excited, a bit nervous, but it should be fun. It should be a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff, man. Thank you guys for listening, and always remember to get up. Peace.
Laters.
Yo. This is the end of the Okiru podcast.
Podcast.
Do I just-